Okay, so I exposed the hip roof and nailed a string right here at the top. Brought that string almost all the way down to the end. And you can see the distance from the string is to the top of the hip rafter. It goes up about this thickness for about 93 inches that I measured. Took some sheathing and I'm going to place sheathing under the string and fill in that gap there. Okay, so I put this piece of sheathing that I cut 1.5 inch on top of the hip rafter here to fill in the gap from the string that I had drawn from the peak of the hip roof down to the bottom. The gap was from 91 inches was just about the thickness of a piece of sheathing. So that worked out pretty well for me. And you can see that I've got a gap now of just like a little sliver of tar paper. It's not bad at all. So the rest of this I'm going to fill in, shim it some way with some wood. Heck, I may even use some shingles. All this is going to be covered up, and it's really just for aesthetics here. I'm trying to straighten the slight bow in this hip rafter. The hip rafter is sound and solid. I've went into the attic and looked at it, and I don't see any signs of rotting or fracturing. I don't see any damage to it at all. It's just when you look down on the ground up at the roof, you can see that there's a little bit of a sag, and you see this a lot of times in these hip roofs, and I've just been trying to figure out how to fix mine, and so this is the way I'm gonna try to make it look better. So I'm going to go ahead and fill all this in with some shim wood, just some scrap wood that I can find. I'm also going to do the same down at the bottom. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace all this sheathing here, bring it up, and it will lay on center here like sheathing is supposed to. And I think it should look a lot better when I'm finished with the roofing job. Okay, I'm continuing to fill in with some shimming here. I'm just using old shingles that I took off the roof, just trying to find some that are still pretty good, and I'm just cutting them sections of about 1.5 inch to go over this 2x8 hip rafter. And I'm just going to continue to fill in. I'm probably going to leave some gaps here. The sheathing is going to be covering this, so it just needs to support the sheathing. And so that's what I'm doing. It gets smaller and smaller, the gap does, as it goes up. So I just have to fill it in. This one will probably take 2 little cuts here. Then I'll stop right where the string touches. It's about right there. Maybe I'll fill in a little bit here. I've looked all over the internet for a way to fix these sagging hip rafters. They look terrible, and I haven't been able to find anything on the internet how to fix those. So this is what I've come up with, and I'll take a shot of this when I get finished. Now I have the new piece of sheathing that I'm going to place. Cut it out for the heater exhaust pipe. Went ahead and tacked it down, but I need to cut the end off. It's running long here, so I'm making a chalk line at the halfway mark of the hip rafter here. Actually made the line already. Then I'm going to take my skill saw, make sure that the blade is adjusted so that it just cuts the sheathing and not into the hip rafter, and just make the cut. Okay, after I made the cut, I can now tack it down along the seam here. And now I can remove this last piece of sheathing here that goes up to the peak, and just repeat the process that I've done over the last 3 courses here. After that, next I can start on this part of the hip, and I can just repeat the process that I've done on this side here. So that's my plan on how to fix this saggy hip. And I'm sure there's other ways to do this. I just don't know of any other ways, and I've tried to find some information on YouTube and all over the internet. So hopefully this will be some help to someone out there.